Hello, everyone. This is Renee Piane. I'm known as the Love Designer. And if you've been watching this show, Get Real About Love, I've been bringing you inspiring stories to help you to believe in love. And today I am super excited because I'm starting a new series, which is people that have found love that I have been in contact with throughout my life. And today I have a special couple who are here to tell us live their love story. It's Christian, who I met, I think, how many years ago was it, Christian?
That was 4 years ago.
4 years ago on a plane, right? It was 4 years ago on a plane. And he just so happened to be sitting at the window next to me. And of course, when you're going to be on a plane for a long time, I always say, hi, I'm Renee. And then he said, hi. And he looked really sad. So he looked really, really sad. And because I'm an empathic person and I work with people, I think I even might have said, are you okay? And then you mentioned that you were going through a situation. So why don't you go back 4 years and give your side of how it all went down?
I had been through the ringer of a couple things. So I had been like fired from my last job. I had a breakup before, and I was going on a show or on a show with my skydive team. And I had been up for probably 2.5 days working on a startup company. And so
Right? I
I was just
remember.
Yeah, I was just ready to be done, and Renee sat down beside me and said, "How are you?" And I was like, "Last thing I want to do is talk, but all right." Yeah, and then you told me your story, which got me starting to actually feel like I should probably say something. So
Yeah. And we ended up having this really amazing conversation about it. And that's what I wanted you guys to share about his healing process. Because what I find in my business, I've been in this industry for almost 30 years, and how sensitive that men are when they have heartbreak. And most women, I don't believe in the world, realize how sensitive men's heart. So here he was on a plane with all these hunky guys that were jumping out of planes. And when I met some of the other guys, I was like, wow, all these bachelors that women always go, where are the bachelors, right? And when men get hurt, and maybe you could speak to this, Christian, they kind of internalize the pain and they're not really sure how to process it. So what were you feeling at that time?
oh my gosh, I felt absolutely distressed, distraught. I didn't know what to do or how to handle it because it's not normally a thing that guys do, talk about your emotions.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the words for it. So I had to learn a bunch of words and learn how to express my own feelings and emotions, which was it's now comfortable, but that was a process just to get through that. That was a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Well, it was interesting because I didn't know him, and I don't, when I end up meeting people, I figure I might as well speak up if they bring up something. And often meeting a stranger is easier to talk about it than it is to meet, having a friend, because
Right.
you don't want to, expose your weak little spots, right? So we started talking about your childhood and your lineage, and it was pretty fascinating. So when you read the book, what came up that made you shift?
Wow, it was really how you talk about some of the imprints that we have and how coming from a family who immigrated to the United States
Mhm.
and having other experiences where I didn't necessarily have a great connection with my father growing up.
Yeah.
It was an emotional root like that I hadn't addressed. So even by one of the conversations we had over the phone afterwards, he had been like, "You gotta do something." And so I went and talked to him, and he had no idea. And I remember he apologized to me, and I was like, "I've never seen this," but yeah, it's
I wanted to show you because the book that I'm writing now, this will be the cover.
oh
So
wow,
to talk about what he is speaking about, which is love imprints, from the roots of our grandparents and the ancestors that are below, right? And this is why ancestry and all DNA testing and all this is so powerful, is because from the roots of your father's father's father, right? These imprints of either fear of love or restrictions or whatever it was that he had get passed, and they go up the family tree, right? So right here is the key to the heart. If you can open up some of those old mysterious stories that often were never told, and say you go, you're in a divorced family, and then when young men are in a family like that, and they're being with the mother who's had to deal with the sadness, they see the mother reacting, then they don't know the real story from the other side, or how it all went down. So they internalize it to mean that love is sad, or it's not good, or and then they keep looping in these relationships. So this is what I call the love lineage tree. So after I spoke to you, there's hundreds of clients that I meet and coach every single day that they don't go deep enough to address these issues. So do you think that was like the game changer for you?
Number one thing for sure. Because going deep into something, that'd be great if you're like, previously it was like, if you're professionally doing something, do a deep dive in this, really learn what you're studying, really get into it, but don't do that to yourself. And as soon as I started doing that on myself, I was like, wow, the healing that you get is like 100 times greater than anything else that you feel more often. And as a man, I think that's the number one thing you like to know as a man, is that there's good feelings that come from things that you do. And when you dive into yourself, as scary as it might be, the feelings that come out of it are insane. It's like 4th of July fireworks, but like the grand finale all day long.
Well, then when you did this, like many people say, it feels like this release of the heart, like, and then the opening happens, and then you get to know the vision that you want, right? So most people, when they have the pain, then they doubt the vision that's really true in their spirit or their spiritual side, right? And I could tell now, maybe Justina, you're his mate now. When you met him, where was he in that phase? Where was he? How was he when you met her? How were you?
Okay, so hearing his background, I was actually blown away that he used to be that person. Because when I met him, he was so put together, and so, he was inspiring me to look at myself, and I was very drawn to him because of what he was pulling out of me and helping me heal from my own background and lineage. And because I was divorced, but at the time when he met me, I had just gone through a breakup with a boyfriend I had, and I was working on myself when he first met me, like doing the same things he had just come out of. So I was actually shocked.
So when you met her, how did you meet her, by the way? Where did the magic happen?
It was a high school gym.
Right.
I was coaching girls high school volleyball, and one of the players who was on my team, she was her mother. So
lucky you.
My daughter. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So I had gotten to know, because I coach and I have this kind of like tougher coaching style, because I was like, hey, look, I think the world's not necessarily always kind to women, but I want them to know that it's okay to have difficulty. But so I'd spend a lot of time talking with the girls, but also be a little bit of a male role model of like, hey, no, it's safe still that it's tough. And so Janet, which is her name, she really loved that and just clung on to that. And so at the end of the season, she told me that, like, you're the only person who's ever been like a dad to me. And I was like, I'm not just gonna disappear on this kid for that. So we started co-parenting, and from there it kind of just developed. So
really kind of took her on as like you were her mentor, teacher, sort of. But then were you guys attracted to each other at that time, or was it sort of like, oh, we're going to do this, we're just going to hang out and see what happens, or you were, no, she wasn't ready, I don't think, right?
He told me when we first started talking, because, okay, so Janet actually was talking to him quite a bit, and I was like, who is this guy? I need to get to know him, because my daughter, she's a teenage daughter, and he's a young guy too, and I just need to know who he is. So I'm like, I'm going to be calling you because I want to know who you are. And so he and I started talking regular and co-parenting, like you said. And he told me I just want to be friends. Like, I'm not looking to date you. Like, and I was actually very relieved by that. I was like, thank you, because every male friendship I've had has always turned them wanting to date me. And I'm like, well, I'm not attracted to you. I'm sorry. And so I was like, oh, thank you. This is safe for me. And that actually created a very safe space for me to like expose and be vulnerable. And, we went through down a lot of rabbit holes of, what I'm thinking and my heart and things like that. So it brought us really close.
Met, or did you feel the feeling like, wow, this could be somebody special, or were you just being, in the moment, taking care of her daughter, or were you or well, of course she's so beautiful, you were like, whoa, look at her mom, So how did that happen? I mean, you were just a total gentleman and just held back the connection.
Well, when she walked in the gym, it was like I recognized her. I knew who she was, and I was like, I'm supposed to be with her. But then I was like, a lot of people have been telling me, hey, if you meet somebody good, just be friends with them first. And so I was like, I don't want to like do anything, especially once the kids got involved. It was like, no, I'm really more concerned about the kids than necessarily that. And so I was like, I don't want anything to do with that. Obviously that changed, but yeah, I was just being a gentleman and trying to be what I thought the best role model of what a dad would be like. And so I was like, well, let me just do that. That's all I know. So that's what I did.
How can a woman not fall in love with someone that loves her children? I mean, especially if your children didn't have a dad that was really all there, right? So you were healing from that, and then your kids are healing from that. And then this angelic type man that is getting in touch with his feelings meets you. So that's why I say to people when, people always say, well, if somebody's in the middle of a divorce, or, if you think about the world right now, there's so much divorce and so much infidelity and sadness, right? So that's really my job, is to open the hearts of people who've had that, to see why they allow those things to happen, because it's all unconscious. Usually, when you were young, you picked your husband at a certain time because you felt the sparkle thing, and then you didn't really know him that well. And then you find out later, 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, he drinks, or whatever was the condition of what was happening. And I don't even know the history. But when you actually go back and look at how you were wired about love, usually there's a reason that you chose him. So if you can learn that, then your children, you can say to them, when mommy met daddy, I was young and I didn't know, and so they can understand what happened and not to feel that doubt about love in their future. So me as a little girl, if any of you are watching this, I did a TEDx, and I don't know if you guys got to see it.
Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah, so you can see like how it passes from generation to generation. So everything that you're doing now with your love is going to then install and make a solid foundation for your kids to believe that love exists despite what happened before. Now, how does your ex feel about all of this? I always wonder.
Yeah. He's been supportive. We co-parent with him, like he moved back shortly after he became involved in their lives, shortly after he and I got together. So that kind of threw a wrench in this whole thing. But ultimately, I think it's positive. We have once a month dinners, all of us together, so that the kids can see that we're united. There's no division there. So
that is going to be one of the most powerful things that you could give to your children. And I know, because of the generations in my family, there was so much divorce that it impacted me to lead me to what I do. I mean, the pain that I went through to watch different aunts be left with kids and all my cousins, and we all get together and talk about it. The book itself, which everybody, you can see, it's called Get Real About Love, The Secrets to Opening Your Heart. There's so many hidden secrets in our parents and our grandparents, but remember, we have the ability to look up stuff online. We can go online and research, don't tell anybody, right? But back then, they had no guides. They didn't have love coaches. I was one of the first for men in America back in 1992. I'm old enough to be, I'm not even going to say, it doesn't matter. But the thing is such a passion for me because of the pain that I experienced. And when I see somebody or feel somebody in pain, I just want to take their heart and say, it's okay. Because if I could heal from it and have the love that I have, which took me quite a long time. Now, I was attracted and married a man that had been married twice before. And everybody was warning me, you know, about getting involved with somebody that was in the middle of a situation, right? So when he met you, you're in the situation. So how long did it take for you guys to build the foundation that made you know that you were going to build a life together? Because that's what most people rush into that, and you didn't. So you had more of a stronger foundation of trust and friendship, right? So how long did it take for you to go, oh my God, this could be like more than just a friendship?
Wow.
I mean,
It was,
months.
yeah, it was, how many months did you guess?
I feel like it was almost a year.
Just about
a year that we were just friends.
And consistently talking on a daily basis throughout the day. Anytime anything came up with the girls, we talked about it. Anytime there was anything that like either of us were thinking about for doing for the girls, or if we were going to meet up, because we lived on the opposite side of town. We were like 50 miles apart in town. And so I'd ride my motorcycle out there, and then I'd meet them for stuff or go to different games. But we coordinated everything. So we spent this year of I guess you say mixing our lives together and trying to work that out. So it wasn't quick, but it wasn't long either. So, but it was a lot of time and a lot of work on it on purpose.
Yes. And every single time, like he would come to my girls' like Janet, she did basketball after volleyball. And then Jocelyn, the younger daughter, she was in softball, and he went to like every one of their games. And that was something they never experienced before. So that was a huge force for them. And every time we were all together, for me and for him, like we just felt like, it felt like home. Like it felt like family.
It's been like that.
Yeah. It just felt meant to be.
Now, is this interesting? When you were a little boy, did your dad not show up? Is that one of the driving forces for you to want to be that force for these young, beautiful girls?
No, he actually, it was quite the opposite. He made it a point to be at every single one of the games that I ever played in. And I never expected that of him because our relationship hadn't always been that great. But he'd leave work, or like even if he was somewhere else in the country, like he would call and ask about the games or try and listen in or something. Or if he literally came from the airport, drove himself there before he even went home, and was at any of my games for as much as he could. Even if I didn't play, because I didn't play all that much, he was always there. And I was like, that was huge for me. So I was like, no, I'm definitely doing that. I don't care what happens. That makes a difference. So that's what that was for me.
It does. But now that you had, what were the conversations, if you could open up, that you had with him that made you heal some of the wounds, do you think?
So I remember exactly where I was. I was in this coffee shop right in the back, and I'd called him, and I had told him that when we'd have discussions or something, and he would say a certain thing to me, it felt like he dismissed my ideas, didn't care who I was or my thoughts, and thought that basically I was nobody, worthless, and didn't know anything. And oftentimes that led to a lot of our fights. And I told him that I felt this way because of a certain thing. And he said, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I had no idea. And he just apologized for like 2 minutes. I sat there and I was like, I'm half crying now in the middle of this place because I just never said anything. But the only reason why I even had the courage to even speak up was literally from going through the process from your book of like what you said, and then having a call with you on the phone. You said, you need to just do it. And I was like, it's hard work, but yeah. So you just got to do it.
Well, you know, the other thing that's cool is if you ever go back to him, he probably got freed up from some of the things like that were stilting him, even though he might not have realized it, the disconnection that you felt, they feel it. Like people feel that. Like when people call me, I say, well, there's usually 4 or 5 people in your heart that are, you know, you still have something going on. And this goes for like if people break up, there's still some people hold on to that person's, the anger from that person for 30 years.
Right.
And then people try to come in and you get blocked because you have this passenger in your vehicle. So it could be a parent, it could be somebody that dismissed you, you know, when you were in college that you really liked and they dumped you for and cheated on you or whatever. I have so many of them because I only thought that men would do that. So I used to attract bad people because I thought they were going to do it anyway. And so I had a series of people. So when people read the book, I'm not saying you know, the only reason I wrote it was because I finally got love at a certain time. And I realized from working with thousands of singles, because I don't know, Christian, if you knew this, but I pioneered the first speed dating company. And that's when I realized the younger generation in your generation date completely different than our parents and grandparents did. So they really weren't great role models for us. And then the younger generation was being, you know, bombarded with tweeting and all the crap on social media. So you're really not getting the healthy role models or communication style. So this book will be something that, you know, and it would be great for you to read it too, Justina, because it'll take you guys to a deeper level of understanding, because inside of Justina is a little girl, right? She's got the little girl and he had this little boy, right? So in every powerful person, I don't care, like if you look at my videos of my movie star, right? If you saw this guy, he's a handsome, gorgeous guy who's been on television, he's famous, and he was here and he was there, and probably had more women loving him than any man I've ever met. I mean, because he's very handsome. He was a bold and beautiful movie star in Italy, and the women just were pouring love all over him. But deep inside of his heart, he doubted himself because of his relationship with his dad, who was a drinker, who was critical because his dad was. So when you go back through the generations, you see how they're wired. They didn't have the skills that we have. They didn't have the guidance. So I decided just to like break it all out and blow out my family. And they all kind of got a little upset about it because it was kind of, you know, exposing. So I called my aunts and then my great aunts and my grandmother, who, if you read my grandmother's story, she was angry at men from back in her mother from the 1800s. So it went from great grandmother to grandmother to my grandmother and all of her sisters. There was 23 pregnancies that my great grandmother had. And 17 of those children lived, and they all were told men cannot be trusted. So they all became Wonder Women like myself. So I had a protected heart myself, anyone that's listening. But it led me to go to study all the things that are in that book. And so by me exposing me, I'm no different than you. I'm no different than you or you. I just am a little further along, and I'm here going, hey, hello, get real, get real.
Right.
And so, you know, you guys will be an example of, like, say you had some fear about love again, didn't you, when you first met him? So you were kind of.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
How did he break the barrier to your heart? Because this is what happens. There's millions of single moms out there, right? And there's a lot of men. Women say to me, I'm a single mom. I'm never going to meet anybody. That's why it's important for you to speak up about your feelings, because I've helped a lot of single moms meet men that don't have kids. Now, I was a woman that never had kids, and my husband had a son. So I became a stepmom. And, you know, it was a powerful journey for me and my stepson, because my husband had been married to two different women, his mother, then the second wife that he got along with sort of. But by the time I came along, he was like, oh no, another woman that I got to deal with, you know? So he ended up editing my book for me. He was a great editor. He said, let me do a final draft, but he never looked at how his mother was wired, his grandparents. And so he actually got to heal his relationship with my husband, his dad, and they became so much closer because of the book. So it even happened for me that we got closer because he got to heal some of his little boy imprints of Joe leaving when he was a young boy. So you don't realize this is incredible. So what broke the barrier for you with Christian?
Yeah. So like I said, I had been on my own journey. So where I was, when he met me, I had realized that I was dealing with an abandonment wound. And so I was abandoned by my father when my parents got divorced. Then I was abandoned by my mother, who passed away. And then I was abandoned by my stepdad after my mother passed away. Then I was abandoned by my ex-husband. So I had deep abandonment issues. So for me, the biggest thing was, he's going to leave me. He's going to leave me, you know. And he is so consistent, and he never broke his word. Like, for him to show up to, like, I'm going to be at the girls' game, and he shows up. I'm going to do this, you know, whatever it is, whatever he said he was going to do, he did it. And so he just, I guess, proved himself. I don't want to say proved himself, but he was consistent. And I think that that's what broke the barrier for me. And also, he pushed me. He would actually call out my abandonment wound because he knew, because we talked about it. He's like, I think your abandonment wound is talking, you know, like, I'm not going to leave you. You know, you need to stop saying that. You need to stop thinking that. You need to stop putting that in your subconscious. So he was really good at, like, calling out that stuff.
He was sharing some of the stuff from the book itself and trying to process you through what he had learned without you actually having to do it, you know, yourself. But I can tell you the depth of some of the stories that come out with couples. Like, I just worked with another couple who the guy was afraid because she was a go, and he had abandonment from his dad, and he was afraid that she would leave him because he wasn't good enough because his dad left and all that, right? So it took her time because she kept pushing him to do the inner work. And he said, I'll do it in my own time, you know? So I said, let him just have his space. And then I spoke to him about the little boy in him. And that is when it broke through. Like, you had this little girl that was abandoned over and over and over. And the only one that can really heal that is you.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So by having the fact that when people always say to me, I don't know how you came along, but I was praying. I was sad. I was really sad. And I was praying, and then you showed up, and I said, well, God, I think, and you know, it warmed. I cried when you wrote me, like it was a God moment. You know, you said maybe God brought me to you that day on the plane, you know,
Right.
and we said that, like, I really believe that this is a mission for me. This isn't just a job. This is my mission to speak up about this important issue, because your little girls are now going to have an even stronger role model as a man to then identify husbands in the future, rather than from the abandoned little girl. So I had an abandoned little girl too. And instead of being a victim of it, I just protected myself. I was like guarding my heart. And when and in the book, it's very interesting. And Christian, I don't know if you did this, but did you ever address it with your ex? Because sometimes as you break up, you know, there's still stuff there that you wish you could have said. And I went back to people that hurt me and people that I hurt, and I did have conversations with them. So did you go through that process yourself too?
I did.
Yeah.
I wrote a letter to her because I couldn't get a phone call in or whatever, and she wouldn't pick up the phone. So I was like, let me write a letter. I'm going to put it all here. And if this is the only chance that I get that maybe it's there, I have done what I can do to address this. And I went and talked to, there was other exes before. I talked to them and I talked to everyone. And I was surprised to find out, one, that other people were like, you know what, we were younger, we were just dumb, and that was it. And I was like, wow, okay, thank you for being kind. I wasn't expecting that. And then I never did hear back from her, but it was that chance to release that and just put it out there and to identify it clearly and just put it out and say, okay, it's there. So yeah, it was good to do.
Well, those healing processes that are in the book are really powerful, because it's really like saying, listen, this, you know, back then this happened, and you know, and the story in the book that everybody always relates to is Mario, the guy that like destroyed my heart when I was 30. He had me, on the West Coast and he had the other girl on the East Coast. And I finally meet his parents, and then he gets drunk and says that he has this other girlfriend on Christmas night, right? Talk about ruin my holidays, right? So that story became this anchor in my heart that I could never trust anyone for years. So if anybody's out there, just like, Christian, he was going to doubt love, doubt in himself, in the future, and make love when it hurts, the abandonment that Justina had, or the breakup that you're going through. If somebody's watching this, if you don't learn from where your original wound came from, you'll keep attracting it until you heal it. That's what I believe. And I used to go to therapists, and I interviewed hundreds of them on my love show back in 1988. Trying to find the answers. And I'm like, okay, you're saying it's a wound, but how do I heal the wound? Well, we'll talk about that next week or whatever. I never got a step-by-step process to take you through, because every person, just like when he met you, I remember when he told me, he said, I met someone and oh my God, and I love her children, And I thought, oh boy, I hope he's not doing the rescue thing, because he is that type of man, as a coach and all the things that you do in your life. So I was a little worried, and I said, just be careful, because he was just opening up.
Yeah.
And he really, I think the way you guys did this is the really true way. And it happened with me, even my husband, because I took it really slow with him and gave it a certain amount of time. And that's what I had suggested that he do, with you, was just to give you space and not push it. But he said he knew. He said, I think this is the girl. And I said, well, just, I'm just so excited because people rush into love a lot. And when they're not healed, the wall will keep showing up. And then the fear that you have will it'll keep looping through your life. Right. So it's a blessing. This is such a blessing that you're sharing this, because many people, I think right now during this COVID time, people have been reflecting on how important love is in their life, and many people don't have it. And I'm sure you have friends that are going like, oh God, I'm all alone,
Yeah.
But during the alone time, if you can get real with yourself and really reflect, it's not about wearing masks. You could meet the love of your life anywhere. And I have these flirting classes and love support things. So, if anybody's watching, please call me, because it's important. These type of stories of abandonment and of him doubting himself because of old imprints from his father hold people back from finding love. And sometimes they end up dying angry. It is so sad. It's so sad. So have your family and friends noticed a difference? I mean, Christian, your family did they see the transformation that happened?
I'm close with my siblings. They know that I'm a totally different kind of a person. They know that I do a different thing here or there, but this is something that's so different. And all of the friends who I have see that. My parents even know that too. Especially you can't do the work and be exactly the same, or you didn't do the work. So it's you're just free to be yourself and then to be the best version of you, and everybody sees that everywhere you go. I get complimented on that often for just being myself, and I'm like, oh, thanks, but I don't know, I'm free. I like being free. If you need help, talk to Renee. But but yeah, it's just yes, I guess.
Well, my family was very much so impressed by him. I mean, he's so different than any guy I'd ever been with. So, I mean, yeah, they could tell, wow, you really picked one different this time. So
Oh, that's great. But the interesting thing is about families, and as the holidays come up, I always invite people, if they read the book, to take holidays as a time to say, well, when you were a boy, like my sisters and brothers, when they read this book, not one of my 5 other siblings knew anything that had happened to me ever. And they always wondered why I do what I like. They were like, why did you do this business? Like, you're putting our shit out into the world. And they're like, why? And I'm like, because there's millions and millions of people all over the world. In India, the women being forced to marry people they don't love. And, you know, the Armenian women and the Persian women that I meet in Los Angeles, whose families force them, if they're 28 years old and they're not married, they're old, you know, this is a world issue. This isn't just you. It's everybody needs to get real about who you are now in this time, and how the imprints of your mom and dad can affect you if you don't face it. And sometimes they hold on to the guilt or the pain that they went through for years, and they can never let it go. And sometimes, but like one of my dear aunts, my great aunt was, I don't know, well, in the book, there's a story of my grandmother, and I know you've read it, but she has not. My grandmother lived with us, and she was the one who used to point at me and say, never trust anyone, never, ever, ever, ever. And then finally one day I sat with her, and I was with a gentleman who was just so happened to be in town, who was a bisexual friend of mine. And my family just loved him, and they thought that I could switch him from being gay and marry him. And I'm like, no, he's a friend. But he was so curious. My 88-year-old grandmom came up, and he started asking her questions. And then I said to her, while you're answering these questions, would you tell me why you've hated men your whole life? And she sat in that kitchen and dumped her heart about the secrets that were hidden in the family for years and years. And it was like, I felt like I was watching the movie, The Titanic, when the little old woman, the little said, well, you know what really happened, right? And I went back in time with her. So I wanted to verify some of those facts, and I went to her sisters. Many of them had been raped. Many of them were lied to and cheated on by multiple people. And they had so much bitterness, but they all became very successful businesswomen. Many of them became successful businesswomen because they had to protect their hearts. So that was the imprint that I got from them, was to take care of me and keep my guard up against anyone. Now, I was 45 years old when I got married. Now, there's a reason that, I had, that I wanted to do this was, hello, if I could get real and find this extraordinary love, and my husband, you've met him. He's a wonderful man. I wish he was here.
Awesome.
He's out working out right now. He's Mr. Stud. He's so dedicated to me, and my family loves him. And I have to say that going through this work was probably the catalyst to me finding extraordinary love. So I'm wishing this love onto you, and to pass it on to others, to heal that part of you. Because if anybody's watching, like when I met him, I would say you were 70% like, never am I going to find love again. But then there was that other part going, maybe there's hope, Yeah. So you were really shut down. You were pretty shut down.
Yeah.
So what would you say to people that are shut down out there now, so that you could inspire them to move forward, to have this kind of a connection with someone in their life?
I'd tell them, if they're interested, there's a way to get out of that and to have everything that you hope or maybe think or fathom could possibly exist. That it's never too late, but you're going to have to do the work. The work is worth it. That's it. Like, do it.
A lot of people that, like when I was going through therapy, they'd say, well, there was infidelity weaved into your family, and that's why you're attracting unavailable men. And I said, okay, but what do I do with this little, I feel like I have this 7-year-old that like is running my love life, And then when I went back and talked about it in the TEDx, it was so many teenagers came rushing up, because it was for teens, right? Came rushing up. So the effect that you as a coach or you as a mother, that effect of the modeling that you had during high school and grade school become really the foundation. So you're going to make a difference from you healing to pass it on just through you being healed yourself. instead of an angry person who got brought up by whatever they had, to they won't ever get those great role models. So it's important for me, anybody that's out there, if you have a great role model story, I want to hear it, because people need good love role models. So you guys are going to become a love role model for a mother that has had 2 single children. Now you're going to have a daddy for your little girl. So what would you say to single mothers that might have doubt about men?
Well, I mean, first, you're right. You do have to really dig deep to see, first of all, what went wrong in that relationship. It's not, I think oftentimes in divorce, the blame gets put on one person. You really do have to look in the mirror. Maybe you didn't really do anything per se, like you didn't cheat or, but what are those roots? Were you led to that person? And so I would say, read your book, because it sounds like I needed that book at a time in my life. Now, luckily, I found other resources that really helped me kind of dig. But if I wouldn't have done that digging and I wouldn't have found out what that little girl needed inside, I would not have been the woman that he was looking for. But 2, I would have not even looked at him, because I would have been looking for the same thing that I've been always looking for that failed. And so I would say, like him, don't be lazy. Don't be lazy. Do the work. Don't be afraid.
A lot of people they'll start reading it and they're hearing about me, and I'm like, the only reason I'm doing this is because I want you to see that it's possible and to be vulnerable. I mean, to put my story out there is a very vulnerable thing. But I don't care, because as maybe someday, I'll be an 80-year-old woman and somebody will say, I read your book and it changed my life. Mm-hmm. That's what inspires me. When he called me and told me what was going on, I was like, oh my God. And we did an interview about you before. And the reason I didn't play it was because it was more about your career. And This was more about love. And I really wanted that, because you had just met her and you were building your career and everything. And now you're stable in a stable relationship leading toward marriage, which is so inspirational for many people that are like, right now, people are very depressed and they don't know where to go to look for guidance, because sometimes therapists, as many of them that are fantastic, they don't know how to put people back into the dating game and to look at the way that people are feeling in the love, in this industry. I've seen it all. They go from a breakup right into sex with multiple partners. They try to numb the pain with drinking and getting laid. Guys will go, oh, the first thing you should do, go get laid. That'll make you feel better, but the heart pain is still there and you keep pushing it down. Now, you were with a bunch of hunky guys, and you think, these guys could probably magnetically attract beautiful women that would think, wow, these guys could be, these strong guys jumping out of planes, superheroes or whatever. But you got to look at the whole foundation first before you get involved, because people don't realize that you're marrying a family. So now your family trusts him, his family loves you. That is what makes life happy. That is what makes life happy, having families merge, because you're merging the family beliefs with your family and your children. So that's why I always say to people, when you're dating, meet the family first. Look at how somebody was wired from their childhood, because you're going to be marrying those imprints, and love is healing. So his love from him healing passed it on to you to heal. And now you guys have a foundation that will make love possible for you in a deeper way than ever before. And that is the whole idea. Like, when people go, well, why should I trust you? And I'm like, well, I've been with somebody now 18 years. Our marriage is very deep. When people see you two now, they're going to see that type of love, right? They're going to see, where did they get that type of love? It doesn't come from just like romance novels and everything. It comes from knowing her little girl, her knowing your triggers. And then when you do have a thing, you can say, well, what made you react that way? This wasn't just me. This was something from before. What was it? And, with men, it's usually stress about money or not being, business stuff. Women, it's like, oh God, I feel fat today. I don't know, all these things that women think, I'm not feeling a certain way. So it's so cool that when you know the imprints of him and he knows yours, and then the kids can even get involved. So it's so funny with me and my husband, because I know all of his triggers, and I'll just go over and I'll pet him, on the head. And I say, this must be little Joe, little Joe. And he's like, God, I know, and here's this big, strong guy, so each person has those delicate sides and the stronger sides. And if you know that about your mate, it deepens your love to a different degree, spiritually, sensually, in all aspects, So I'm really excited for you guys. So what's your next step? You're going to get married sometime soon, do you think?
Yeah, September 2021.
No kidding. That's going to be where are you going to get married?
Oh man, we're thinking about Florida on the beach.
That sounds beautiful. That's a good time in Florida too. California too has a lot of beautiful beaches. Beautiful beaches. So where do you live now? Where are you?
We're still here in Minneapolis, in Minnesota.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's a little cold there now. Yeah. But I just wish you guys the best of luck. And if there's any way that I could be there, we got married on September 4th. That we made it Labor Day weekend so that we could always have a holiday around our wedding. So I don't know, if we're in Florida, would you do it? Miami, you think?
Gulfside. I think we have a couple places. We haven't determined it yet, but somewhere nice.
Yeah, somewhere nice.
Well, that is so exciting. I just want everyone to stay inspired by these lovely people who open themselves up today to talk about, these imprints that may have blocked them from finding each other. And for single mothers to realize that there are really wonderful men that would love to be involved in the upbringing of your children. So these girls are lucky girls, I can tell you.
Yes, they are.
So any final words for people out there that might doubt that love exists? Anybody? You want to say anything?
Just don't give up on yourself, because you'll at least have somebody else show up who won't give up on you. So just keep going, keep looking, and honestly, if you have any questions, just talk to Renee.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody's watching, feel free to call me for a free consultation, and I will put the information on this video when it goes online. And I think that as the holidays come, this is the time when many people feel the loneliest. So this would be a great gift to give to yourself or someone that that is going through a heartbreak or a transition or a breakup. I think that it makes you to take a look at your heart. And then, of course, you have to buy yourself a heart and be kind to your heart. So as a last thing to say to you, this is a symbol that I use with my husband, and I invite you guys to get one, maybe for each other. So whenever there's any type of conflict or I'm feeling a little sad because he's busy or whatever, I put the heart down on his desk so that it's a sign of us needing to have a deeper heart-to-heart conversation. Because with Corona right now, many couples are in conflict, job, instability and challenges and things like that. And I know many family members too, there might be things that go on in the family. So I use the heart. I have, my clients give them to me. I have them all over my house, in both houses.
Wow.
This is a heart that one of the girl that I was talking about, this was from Amanda, my cousin. She gave me this last Christmas, but I get hearts from many of my clients. So you guys ought to buy yourself one to put out, for romance, so my husband works a lot. So sometimes instead of going, I'm waiting for you, or being kind of cranky, I just come in and I'm like, see this? And I put it down on the desk. I said, this office is open for the next 45 minutes. And then after that, I'm going to sleep. So this is a symbol of the need for us to connect. when you
Mhm.
feel disconnected. So that's my final little love tip of the day for couples. And for anyone out there that is going through a heart-wrenching heartbreak, stay tuned, because I'm going to be bringing other couples on that have healed themselves through this process and have found love. And I really thank you guys for sharing your truth. And I would love to have a picture of you, if you don't mind, of you and the girls, maybe to see the
Yeah.
family. Maybe I
Sure.
could
Yep.
Yeah.
put that up and say, this man met a single mom, and this is a love story about a man who loved a single mom and her girls, because I think there's millions of single people that do have children that doubt that love exists. So that's really a message for that love exists for you if you're healing, but also for single moms, to not imprint their children with the sadness, and by keeping their hearts open to love as well. So
Mhm.
thanks for tuning in, everyone. This is Get Real About Love with Renee Piane and Justina and Christian. I can't wait to possibly be at your wedding, depending
Yep.
on the time. That's one of my favorite things, is to show up at weddings of people that I've helped to find each other. So God bless you. God bless your love. And I'm so happy to meet you, Justina, just to see you two together. You're kind of glowing right through the screen here. And today it is a full moon today. So I met my husband on a blue full moon, and tonight is a blue full moon. So when Joe and I see a blue full moon, I always look up and I feel that God is shining on us. And so I wish that tonight, if you take a look at the blue full moon, that you'll know that God is shining love down on both of you. And I wish you the happiness for the rest of your life, and how much your words will inspire others. So thank you for sharing.
Thanks for having us
Yeah.
on.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, you have a great night and a great day. And we will I'll send you a copy of this so you can pass it on. And I bless you and your time together in this life. It's such a sacred gift that God brings us all when you really know that you deserve it. And you guys
Mhm.
will be an example to many others. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Renee.
Thanks.
All right. See you soon. Can't wait.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye-bye.